3 words. That is the entire contingency plan NBC has in place for the moment this case breaks wide open while Savannah Guthrie is live on national television. Needed offset. That is the phrase. Reportedly understood by every producer at the Today Show, it signals one thing. There has been a development in Nancy's case. Say those 3 words to Savannah while she is on camera, and she is pulled immediately, mid-segment, mid-sentence if necessary, taken into an office where the news is delivered privately, while another anchor steps in to report it as breaking news to the country. An insider who spoke to a national outlet described the protocol plainly. They said, "We would pull her immediately mid-segment if we had to. We would take her into an office and tell her. At the same time, another anchor would report it as a breaking story." The existence of that protocol is extraordinary. It means NBC has operationally planned for a moment that has not arrived. It means the network believes that moment is possible, perhaps close enough to plan for in detail. And when former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer read that same report this week, she said something that has been circulating since. Perhaps the FBI is closer than people think. Day 74. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, taken from her home in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona, on the night of January 31st, 2026. 74 days. No arrest. No named suspect. A $1 million family reward and a $100,000 federal reward, both unclaimed. And now, a 3-word code that has never been used. Yet. This is part 1 of 5. The code phrase is only one of several developments this week that together build a picture of a case moving, not loudly, not visibly, but moving. A new name surfaced in public discussion, Jay McCalmont. According to reporting based on community sources, McCalmont is being discussed in connection with a claimed falling out and a money dispute that predates Nancy's disappearance. No official source has named McCalmont as a suspect. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has not confirmed any connection. The FBI has not commented. The Mitchell report will state clearly what it can and cannot say about this. We cannot confirm any connection between Jay McCalmont and the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. What we can say is that his name is circulating in the community that surrounds this case, attached to a specific claim about a financial dispute and a personal break in a case where an insider with claimed law enforcement knowledge said the motive is simple and monetary. Whether those threads connect or not has not been established by any official source. A second name also surfaced, Clay Crouch, identified as a neighbor of Nancy Guthrie with prior criminal history that includes charges related to burglary and kidnapping. Again, no official source has named Crouch as a suspect in this case. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has not confirmed any connection. What the emergence of these names reflects is the dynamic that defines this investigation at the 74-day mark. In the absence of an official named suspect, the community surrounding this case has been working its own investigative threads. Some of those threads are irresponsible speculation. Some of them represent genuine tip-driven research by people who are paying very close attention. The burden of distinguishing between the two falls on law enforcement, and ultimately on the evidence. What the Mitchell report notes about both names is this: the emergence of specific individuals with specific claimed connections to Nancy's life, her neighborhood, the circumstances that made the abduction possible, is consistent with the investigative theory that the inside knowledge required to plan this crime came from within the victim's social and physical orbit. That theory has been stated on the record by former FBI profilers. These names may represent nothing. They may represent a thread investigators have already evaluated and closed, or they may represent information that investigators have not yet received in official form. The tip line is 1-800-KEEL-FBI. If your information is real, that is where it belongs. Now the ransom notes, because this week brought sharper analysis of what those notes have been doing to the Guthrie family and a specific expert assessment that the word torturing is not an exaggeration. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer said directly this week that the ransom notes are torturing Savannah Guthrie's family, not because the family cannot handle them, but because of the specific cruelty of the mechanism. The notes arrive, they contain information, specific details about Nancy's appearance, references to locations, claims about her status, and the family cannot know which pieces are real and which are fabricated by opportunists who have inserted themselves into a case with national attention. When one note says Nancy is dead and the next note says she was seen alive in Sonora, Mexico, the family must hold both possibilities simultaneously. They cannot afford to dismiss either entirely, because what if one of them is real? What if dismissing the death claim is a failure of grief? And what if dismissing the alive in Mexico claim is a failure of hope? They are forced to exist in both states at once, without resolution, without the ability to mourn fully or hope fully, in a sustained state of suspended uncertainty. That is what Coffindaffer means by torture. Not a dramatic word. A clinical description of what the note-sending pattern does to a family in this situation. Savannah Guthrie described her own experience of this. She told her colleague in an interview last month that she wakes up in the middle of the night with terrors. She said she is in agony. She said her family cannot grieve. They can only ache and wonder. She said she is so sorry to her mother, to her siblings, to her children, to her brother-in-law, because she wonders if her public visibility made her mother a target. That last sentence carries its own weight and deserves to be named directly. A woman who has spent her career on national television is now wondering whether her profession put her mother in the hands of whoever took her. That is a specific and devastating form of guilt that goes beyond grief. And the ransom notes, by keeping the question of Nancy's status permanently open, prevent the one thing that would allow that guilt to begin to resolve. Hoda Kotb said this week that sitting next to Savannah is watching what strength looks like. She said Savannah is strength personified. The Mitchell Report agrees. But strength should not have to carry this, and it has been carrying it for 74 days. Police are back in the neighborhood. Specifically, patrols have increased in the areas surrounding Nancy's home and the neighborhood where Annie Guthrie lives. The official reason is continued complaints from residents, from Annie herself, about harassment by online commentators and content creators who have been filming, approaching neighbors, and generating disruption. This dynamic is not separate from the investigation. It is part of the environment the investigation is running in. And the Mitchell Report has a direct observation to make about it. The harassment of Annie Guthrie and her husband Tommaso Cioni has not produced evidence. It has not produced a suspect. It has not produced a tip that law enforcement has publicly acted on. What it has produced is a family member with her own security concerns, a neighborhood habituated to suspicious activity, and a news environment in which the signal-to-noise ratio that investigators depend on for community tips is being consistently degraded. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has explicitly cleared the entire Guthrie family, all siblings, all spouses. That statement was not ambiguous. The family is victims. The harassment of victims in a case that has not been solved is not investigation. It is harm. Separately, Savannah Guthrie's mid-episode exit from the Today Show this week generated its own coverage and questions. She stepped off set mid-broadcast, prompting public speculation. The network indicated there was no case-related development. She returned to the broadcast. The protocol, the needed offset code, was not triggered. Nancy has not been found. What the exit did was remind the country for a moment of what it would look like if the code phrase was used, what the moment before a major development in this case would look like on live television. It would look like Savannah Guthrie stepping away from the anchor desk without warning, in the middle of a story that is not hers to tell from inside the studio. That moment has not come. The code has not been used, but NBC has planned for it, and Coffindaffer says the FBI may be closer than people think. The expert consensus this week has moved in a specific direction. Multiple practitioners, speaking from different professional vantage points, have aligned on a version of the same assessment. The kidnappers underestimated Nancy Guthrie's medical fragility. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer's reading that this was kidnapping for ransom and that something went wrong is supported by Detective Brian Martin's earlier analysis, in which he described a hypothetical scenario where suspects planned to hold her for a day or two and then release her in a public location once payment was secured. Martin suggested the kidnappers did not plan for what happened when Nancy's health did not cooperate with that timeline. An expert cited in reporting this week said the kidnappers likely disposed of her body because she was no longer of value. That language is clinical and brutal, and it reflects the investigative reality that when a ransom operation goes wrong because the hostage does not survive, the people responsible face a choice: reveal what happened and face murder charges, or conceal it and maintain silence. The silence is the strategy. The reward in this reading has not worked because the people with the information that would unlock it are the same people who would be arrested if they came forward, which is exactly what the homicide detective on the YouTube discussion about this case said earlier this week. He said anyone who knows what happened is too deeply involved to safely claim the money. He described those with knowledge as riding or dying together now. That framing, if accurate, redefines what breaking this case requires. It is not about someone with peripheral knowledge deciding to trade information for a reward. It is about the investigative work, the DNA analysis, the cell tower data, the blockchain forensics, the pharmaceutical procurement trail, producing a result that does not require voluntary cooperation. A result that arrives because the evidence followed a suspect to a name, not because a witness chose to speak. The Mitchell report believes this case will be solved, not because it needs a nice ending, because the evidence is there, inside a pacemaker, inside a DNA mixture, inside a blockchain record, inside a cell tower log from 1:47 in the morning on February 1st. Someone was in that neighborhood. Someone left biological material. Someone made calls from within Bluetooth range of the home. Someone acquired a pharmaceutical compound in the weeks before the abduction. That evidence does not choose silence. It waits to be read. 3 words, needed offset. The code has not been triggered. The investigation has not broken open in public, but it is moving. And Savannah Guthrie is at that desk every morning, which means the country does not forget, which means the pressure does not lift. The tip line is 1-800-CAL-FBI. $1 million, anonymous. No identification required. Tips.fbi.gov. If you know something, today is the day.